A bad trip turned me into a preacher, writes the Bucks Herald News Report, January 2012. As a drug-fueled criminal in the swinging 60s, David Clarke thought he was living life to the full. Well known to the police, he and his brother Michael were notorious in Aylesbury, stealing cars and burglaring homes around the Vale. But David saw the error of his ways and converted to Christianity after a terrifying acid trip. His unlikely tale is told in Converted on LSD Trip, a new book that takes its name from the 1971 Bucks Herald newspaper about his turnaround. And now in a new edition called Borstal Boys. I know the aimless list of people who get involved with criminality these days, like those in the London riots, said Dave. My objective is to help the people who can be helped. I've been there, worn the t-shirt, and I want to help people out. The brothers' life of crime started in 1963, when his family moved to a new house in the Bedgrove estate, over some boys who took Davy's moped when they were living in Wilston. So he told his older brother Michael, who attacked one of the boys with a knuckle duster that he'd made at Mortimer Hills School in Tring, and was sent to a detention centre in Oxford. Michael spent the rest of his teenage years in and out of detention centres and Rochester Borstal. David began stealing bicycles with a friend and was eventually given probation for stealing a motorbike. I started to mix with my brother's mod friends who were older than me whilst Michael was in Rochester Borstal. I lived in my brother's sunlight. He was so notorious around Aylesbury, David said. As a 15-year-old, you're only interested in girls, money and music. On release from Rochester Borstal, David and Michael continued their criminal endeavours, stealing cars and chloroforming people, even in the Grosvenor Dance Hall. But the brothers were sent back to jail for malicious wounding after shooting a woman with an air gun. He thought it was a joke, shooting some bird in the backside to make her scream, said David. When I got out of Borstal, I was determined to live life to the full, and whilst inside, I learned how to get away with a life of crime. For the next 3 years, David went about stealing cars, mechanical equipment, and anything else that he needed, until an epiphany which came on the 16th of January 1970, when he had a terrifying LSD trip and thought he was going crazy. As he lay down petrified in a garden sunshed in Mount Street, Jesus spoke to him and told him that what he was going through was nothing compared to hell, said David. From that night on, he lived as a Christian and even returned some of the items he had stolen, including a trolley jack he'd taken from a garage near the Broadlays pub in Aylesbury. David's previous crimes caught up with him, though, when police arrested him for stealing a colour TV he had stolen from an old people's home in Winslow. He confessed to 24 crimes, but was given a conditional discharge. David went on to live a religious life, becoming a strict Baptist minister, being sent to preach by the Beaton Stricter Particular Baptist Church in 1982, being sent by the Beaton Stricter Particular Baptist Church in Beaton, and lectured in electronics at Luton College of Higher Education. However, Michael continued his life of crime until 1996. He was sentenced to 16 years in a jail in the Philippines for promoting child prostitution, a crime he always denied. He too found God in 1999, some 30 years after David's conversion, and became a Christian. The two brothers then turned their focus to help other criminals to go straight by teaching them about Christ. Michael died of tuberculosis in New Bilibid Prison in 2005, before their vision of bringing help to many was realised. David is now still fighting to clear his name from the false conviction and continues to this day to help many of those who he has encountered in his life's journey. Bucks Herald newspaper, January 2012.